Welcome to Refirement Life. Today's guest is someone that proves insight and laughter can be a powerful combination. Kahn is our guest today, and she is a award-winning keynote speaker, business strategist, comedian, and playwright. For more than 25 years, she's helped leaders, sales teams, and organizations improve communication, strengthen emotional intelligence, and thrive through change. She is well known for blending practical business wisdom with humor, and she is the author of Myth Shift, co-host of the Smarter Sales Show podcast, and creator of the sold out one-woman show, Optimistic Personality Disorder, which is going on tour and tickets will be sold. We're going to give you the link to that in the notes. And I can't be more excited to have you here, Merritt. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, talk about being a polymath. I mean, you have your hands in a little bit of everything.
I suppose I do. And I think, fortunately for me, there's just a nice overlap between everything I do. Basically, it always involves a stage of some sort. So I'm either on stage at a business conference doing a keynote or a workshop, or I'm on stage performing my one-woman show, or I'm on stage. Something else we'll add to the bio. I tour and do stand-up comedy with a group called Moms Unhinged, and we also tour the country selling out large theaters of mostly mom audiences and all mom comics, and that's a lot of fun too. So I am all about, inspiring you or making you laugh, making life a little lighter, making leadership a little easier, whatever I can do. But it always involves a stage.
That's fantastic. Wow. Moms Unhinged. And that's a great title. So I can't wait to dig in. So, let's just get first a little bit grounded on your own story. You have reinvented yourself multiple times, from consultant to comedian to playwright, while continuing to build a successful business. What have those reinventions taught you about courage, curiosity, and staying relevant at every age of life?
Well, I think I've always had the philosophy that everything that you do is in some way leading you to the next thing. You just may not see the full complete picture yet. It's often easier to look back and go, "Oh, no wonder I had to understand advertising and marketing. No wonder I had to learn public speaking. Like I didn't realize that all of that was leading me to essentially producing my own tour of my own show." That's I think I'm in the pinnacle of what everything has been leading me toward. But I do think that, we go through seasons in our life, and throughout our lives, our interests change, the people around us change, the things we learn change, the world around us changes, and we can grow and adapt, and we're interested in new things. And I just think that even when I look back, it's like, well, I started in sales and in media sales, selling radio advertising, and then I became a manager, and then I became a sales trainer, and then I was a speaker, and to be a better speaker, I learned comedy, and then I loved comedy, and so I pursued that, and it's just everything's just been a beautiful addition to the mix. And because I think the through line there is curiosity. I would say
Mhm.
curiosity is really the thing that, when I had a sales training management training company, I was very curious because I had a couple of clients that were, identical kind of when you looked at them, right? They sold the same thing for the same company at the same price point in the same market. And one of them had really great results, and the guy sitting next to him learning the same training material from the same trainer in the same moment didn't have great results. And I'm thinking, how can that be? Like, clearly, you know, it had to be my training that was so great. But turns out no. It was, and I was curious about that. And that's what led me to getting studying and getting certified in emotional intelligence. And once I understood how people were wired a little different, then I understood better that the learning that you layer on top of as an individual's wiring is going to make all the difference in how they receive that information and how
Right.
they're able to use it. And so that changed how I coached, and it changed how I spoke to audiences. And I think that curiosity led me to so many different things. And then it was like, well, how, could I be a comedian? Could I make people laugh, but also get them thinking more about their own life?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, it took a long time, but that's when my own life story, as told through the lens of comedy, honestly, I think has been my greatest work and my greatest impact. Like, I could teach you great things about sales and leadership and emotional intelligence, but people come away from my comedy show with these unexpected insights that are, I didn't imagine impacting people the way that a comedy show does. I thought that's what a keynoter does,
Yeah.
but it's been quite an interesting journey.
Do you think part of that is because you did these things successfully in midlife? And maybe people can see, well, she didn't start out as a comedian. She didn't start out as a playwright. She did these other things and this path of curiosity and trying and being a little bit comfortable with the uncomfortable paid off.
Hmm. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I think certainly, w- with age can come wisdom. I won't say that it is a guarantee. There's some people that are really old and stupid. Um,
Right.
but I think the curiosity and reflection. I think I've always been a person who would reflect on my experiences and really deliberately go after what lesson was that trying to teach me? Who was I being in that scenario? What served me? What didn't serve me? What am I taking with me? What am I leaving behind? I think those are all valuable lessons. And having so reinventing myself was something that I think I've always done. Maybe I'm getting better at it, or maybe I just have more experience at it now in midlife, which is very generous. I don't know that I'm I'd have to live a very long time to be still in midlife. um
But
but
I mean, to your credit, it sounds like you've built a platform where you can continue to create, you can continue to develop, to share the talents, to and also to learn. I mean, I would imagine there's no better place to learn but to deliver comedy and see the instant reaction or
yes.
non-reaction to some of your material, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a student of personal and professional growth. And, at 19, I was walking on hot coals and breaking a board with my hand with Tony Robbins. And, the radio station that I was a manager for was literally called Personal Achievement Radio. And we played a hit idea like a music station plays a hit song. So I've always been around this. And I I think one of the greatest things I learned about personal growth came from studying stand-up comedy. And
Mm.
that was when I learned I had language for what makes comedy funny, at least the comedy that I tend to gravitate toward is when a comic observes the things that they are observing. You observe your own reactions about it. So, there's a very famous comic who's made a very good career out of things like what's the deal with old people driving out of the, backing out of the driveway? Like
Mhm.
like Seinfeld did well with observational humor.
Yes.
Um, what I think makes that so funny is the fact that that even registered with him. Like, what made you stop and notice
Mhm.
that thing? And the humor is in that gap. Like the title for my show is Optimistic Personality Disorder. And the only way that that came up is I was journaling at the time about my divorce. And it was a very difficult marriage. And I was writing about how how excited I was that I really think we're going to get through this divorce like friends. Like I feel like it's going to go smooth and it's going to be easy. And all of a sudden I looked at the page and I thought, wow, he might have had narcissistic personality disorder, but I think I have optimistic personality disorder. Like, why do I think that my difficult marriage, when we loved each other, was going to end in a smooth and easy divorce when the love was gone? Like, I think I'm delusional. And so with that label came this explosion of different ideas about how I look at life.
Mhm.
And and I can see that very clearly now, but there's just a lot of comedy in observing how we observe things.
Yeah. So connecting to your show, I mean, do you encourage people to have optimistic personality disorder and how do you actually define it?
Well, it is kind of interesting because, I'm a comedian who may know a little bit too much about about how humans are wired because of my in-depth studying of personality styles, behavioral styles, sales and leadership and emotional intelligence certainly. And so uh, I know that if you're overly optimistic and that's the only thing that you're leaning on, that is a recipe for disaster.
Mhm.
Because, you'll be late to meetings. It's like you'll think traffic won't affect you, or, you could eat the entire gallon of ice cream and you'll be fine. No, no, you won't. So being overly optimistic doesn't really serve. But the whole thing with emotional intelligence is there are 15 attributes that we can assess for. And and it's interesting to know what your highs and lows are in terms of things like self-regard, independence, decision making, interpersonal relationships, empathy. Like we can measure a lot of things, but the real value in an assessment like that and coaching in that regard is the combinations of attributes and how they work together. So when I look at something like optimism, I'm wanting to see it balanced with another finding called reality testing, right? So if you're too high in reality testing and low in optimism, you're going to play devil's advocate all the time. And that kind of person is a little bit annoying. Valuable in certain scenarios when, let's say in business um, you're developing a new product or a new customer base or something like that. You want to poke holes in the idea so that
Mhm.
you can build your uh, your
Right.
strategic plans to deal with that. But if you're overly optimistic with low reality check, you're kind of you suck your head in the sand and you're not even looking at the potential pitfalls. So both of those extremes are not good. Where you find most value in business and in life is where you can work to get those two findings in balance. So yes, I
Mhm.
want to be maybe a little bit more optimistic, but I want to bring a sense of realism to that. So as an example, like when I am self-producing my tour, I'm looking at the details of, okay, well, I can rent this theater, and if I sell it out, then I'll be profitable. But if I sell out 50%, I'm going to lose money. Well, if I'm overly optimistic, I'm broke.
Right.
Like,
Right.
uh, you
Real
know,
consequences.
there's
Yes.
real consequences. So, but if I'm too, realist, I would be maybe too risk adverse to go
Mhm.
for it. So that balance, I think, again, to your earlier question, like all of these experiences snowballing can help me look at things and evaluate things in my own business and with my clients and for the workshops that I lead to let people know, like, it's good to be optimistic. It's good to be, see the silver lining, but it's also good to carry an umbrella.
Right, right,
You
right,
know?
right.
Yeah.
And there's lots of tools and assessments out there. Is there one that you like to recommend to people if they're curious about their self makeup?
Yeah, so what I would say as an overall caution is, the assessment you can get for free online, or I think they were at one time they were like, you could buy a $5 assessment for emotional intelligence at Barnes and Noble off the bookshelf, and I just you get what you pay for.
Right, 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 right.
The tool I love that I've been certified in since 2008 is through an organization called Multi Health Systems. They're based out of Toronto, and they have the most scientifically validated assessment for emotional intelligence on the market. And that's why I like it. You cannot do this assessment on your own. You have to do it with a certified, very well trained um, consultant who has studied this, who understands. Because if you think about it, like I'm looking at how you're wired internally. That is very deep work. If I don't understand it, I'm going to give you some coaching. I might say something and you would really hear that as,
Hmm.
this gospel because it's got this, research behind it, but I could do real harm if I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so I really encourage people. I love my multi-health systems. I love doing this work. It doesn't take a long time. You can do an assessment. I do a 3-part coaching series, one-on-one. It's all private, afterwards. And then, because you need some time to let it land, to see how these findings show up in your real life, so you can
Mhm.
confirm or deny things for yourself. And then you build this plan and you work with a coach. And I work with people ongoing, but my philosophy is, I don't want you to work with me forever. I want you to get the lessons you need. You can't unsee this. It'll show up everywhere. And then where are you shining a light, and what are some very specific practical things you can do on a consistent basis to move the needle in whatever area you're focusing on. And I think it's just very deep, valuable work, and people do notice change right away. And that's one of the reasons I love emotional intelligence is, unlike IQ, which is pretty set by the time you're 17, you can't really change it. You're as IQ smart as you're going to get. But
Mhm.
EQ is absolutely transformational, and it generally goes up over time as you get
Mhm.
more experiences and have more awarenesses and you've done more reflection. But it can also vary greatly when you're put into a brand new situation. So I might assess you today as a leader in an industry where maybe you've worked for 20 years, and you know that you know what you are doing. And then the very next day you're like, well, I'm going to open my own business in this completely different industry. And it's like all of a sudden your high independence, your high self-regard, your high decision making skills, your high stress management are all completely altered because something big just happened. But
Mhm.
what you learn from that is, well, I can get back there. It's just situationally, I'm in a state of growth.
Yeah, yeah. I've been certified as a coach, not in emotional intelligence, but I recognize how important the interpretation is, to your point,
Yeah.
of actually knowing the ins and outs of different tools as well, knowing how to guide someone in a way. I love what you said too. The 3 steps would be like understand the tool, sit with it for a while, understand, really, and be aware. Awareness is really key to any
Yeah.
growth. So having that opportunity to catch your breath and then come back with a plan, that sounds like a winning formula.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't need to be strong in everything. You might be
Right.
part of a team. You might
Hmm.
deliberately have team members that are higher in certain attributes that are not your skill set. And then, so my one of my favorite projects of all time, my one of my biggest projects is I assessed the entire leadership team for this multi-million-dollar international company. And it was a really big project for me, and it happened over COVID. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need all these coaches. And then it happened over COVID. And I'm like, well, I'm not traveling anywhere, so I guess I could do all of it, which was a unique opportunity to I did deep dives. I individually coached 67 leaders across multi disciplines in the organization. And then we did team trends, and
Hmm.
we were able to glean from that areas in their hiring process that could use a couple of tweaks because they were missing some things. There were attributes that were across the board low for just about everybody on the team. And so we thought, okay, well, how do we do a better job of assessing for that? But also, is that a valuable attribute that our leaders need? If we're successful and our leadership team is low in this particular attribute, do we need it? Right. So
Mhm.
there was a lot of analysis when we had so much data to look at, and we cross-reference that with the effectiveness of each particular leader in terms of their recruitment and retention numbers, their productivity. Some were in sales, some were in operations. So we did this massive dissection of this information, and this company will never be the same. They will never unknow what they learned in that moment in time with that data. And it's to this day, 6 years later, helping them make better hiring decisions, build better team cohesiveness, and it's just been a game changer.
Yeah, yeah. It could be a universal like translator too, when you realize, well, this person operates this way. And, if you look at your own profile, maybe you're the complete opposite, and understanding how to come at them in a different way, in a way that they'd be more receptive and understanding.
Yeah,
That things like that can be really game changing for business.
absolutely.
So, we haven't touched on AI yet, which, wow, we're like 15 minutes into the
Yeah.
conversation and we haven't, which is surprising these days, right? Um, as someone who knows a lot about EQ, now AI, can replace some functions, some processes, but you've been saying actually that it's actually making human skills more valuable.
Yeah.
And when you talk about that, what guidance are you giving leaders? What capabilities should they be double downing on?
Uh, so AI, I think we need to really we need to separate. It's just like anything else. Like there's things that it's meant to do and things that it's not meant to do. And um I think simply, you think about like AI reads data. EI reads the room, right?
Hmm.
So if you think about AI computes and EI connects, that's pretty much the bare bones. You want to like you it would be ineffective to give a person a task these days to review the spreadsheets like I was just talking about. Like that would have been a monumental task if we didn't use AI to help us pull these trends from this mountain of data.
Hmm.
And but once it distilled down, I was able to say, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I'm the one who's directing the whole project. So obviously I'm going to ask AI better questions than somebody who doesn't have that uh, knowledge and experience. But AI actually pointed out some things that I hadn't found in the data. And so then I take that information, work in alignment with it, and as the EI person who's going to interpret this and help people, okay, well, how do we use this data to help you better connect, to help you
Hmm.
better add to your team, retain your employees? Like, so I think that this combination that we have today, like when I was a leader, in managing a radio station, we didn't have AI. We barely got email back in those. That's how old I am. Um, and and so it was a people business. And I don't think that leadership and management has changed in that regard. I think leaders need followers. The reason people follow a leader and will walk through fire for that leader is not because they're great at crunching data.
Hmm.
you
True.
know, if you think, and I do this exercise all the time in my keynotes and workshops and business programs, I'll ask people, write to at your table, what are all the attributes of somebody that you loved working for?
Mm-hmm.
Think of a past leader, a current leader, what kind of things. And they say things like, they had my back, they're understanding, they're empathetic,
Authentic.
authentic, right? Like all of those
Yeah.
things. None of that has anything to do with, gosh, they really know the industry. They're so quick with a math problem. It's like, no, it had nothing to do with, their experience. It had everything to do with people skills. And the more we rely on AI to get our business work done, the more those people skills stand out as important because we miss that now. So many of us are sitting behind computers all day long, and so many of us more so today than when I was working my way through a career, we're in offices all by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we used to, everybody's working from home now or telecommuting and all of that. And so we are craving these interpersonal
Connection.
relationships and this connection. And I mean, I have friends that, ChatGPT is their therapist. Like, what?
Yes. Yeah,
That's,
you're not alone. I have friends doing the same thing. It's interesting. Yeah.
like if you want to know what that person meant when they said that in that text, maybe ask the person. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really it is something else for sure. Um so when you're talking with leaders and you're spending time on keynote messages, what are I guess what are the things you're listening for? Are there big mistakes that organizations are making when they are really focusing on the AI piece without thinking about the whole people landscape?
I think the one thing that is being minimized is the stress factor, right?
Hmm.
So one of the things that technology has been great to speed things up for us, but also there's this expectation to do more, right? So if technology is taking things off your plate, you have more time to do these other things. The problem is that adds more stress to all the things we're supposed to accomplish in a defined period of time. And so what I think is an unexpected message that has been incredibly valuable for my audiences that they tell me is this idea of laughter lightening the load you hold, and that laughter actually creates space. So if you think about it this way, one of the visuals that I do with an audience is I'll say, okay, like make a fist with your left hand, right? And just hold it up. And then like this fist represents somebody's closed mind, right? They don't have time for your ideas, your other solutions. They don't want to hear your offers. They don't have a job opportunity. Like there's just nothing else can get in this closed fist. And then if you take your right hand and you wave it in the air and you kind of do like this, like you spread out your fingers and do a little jazz
Jazz
hands,
hands.
right? Like this represents like possibilities, ideas, light and spacious and playful. And if, as much as you have these great new ideas, you can't get them into a closed fist, right? There's
Hmm.
just no room. So the first step to a closed deal is an open mind. You have to, if you dramatically open your fisted hand and then your palm is out and your fingers are spread, there's space. And now all these ideas on your jazz hand can have somewhere to land.
Hmm.
So this idea of a closed mind never buys, and the first step to a closed deal is an open mind. The first step to a bigger deal is an open mind. The first step to a new possibility is an open mind. And in order to open someone's mind, you've got strategies like you can ask them, are you open to, right? That's just a simple question. People, we used to go to a store and somebody would say, can I help you? And you'd say, no, thanks, just looking, right? Back in the days when we went to actual stores. Um, but, or, are you interested? Are you interested in this? Well, no. It's easy for me to tell you I'm not interested. and I can still sleep well being a nice person because that has nothing to do with who I am. But if you ask me, are you open to learning about this? And I tell you I'm not open to it, well, then that says something about who I am. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants to be seen as being closed-minded. We all want to think ourselves as these like open-minded people. So that's a simple question you can ask to set the stage for somebody being open to hear your ideas, your solutions, etc. But another way to open someone's mind is to lighten the mood, to lighten things up. And laughter is the best way. It's incredibly difficult to be stressed out and laughing simultaneously.
Right. So how do you
So, yeah.
introduce that into business? Because we don't have trained comedians in every boardroom.
No, we don't. And you don't have to be. That's, I teach a class, I teach it virtually, and I teach it at conferences, and I do it live too, but it's called Think Like a Comedian. And it's not designed necessarily. I mean, I've certainly had comedians take my class, but it's designed for regular people to
Mm-hmm.
understand how to think funnier. And and again, it's about that observation piece, right? And so anybody can learn how to see life through a comedic lens. And one of the simplest principles is you don't have to create comedy, you can curate comedy. And
Mm.
so I will tell audiences, and there's this like sense of the you could visibly see them relax, like, oh, I can be seen as funny if I'm the one sending out funny things. And then I'll, just be responsible and say, like, just make sure if you're going to send things to people in your office, you're sending the office appropriate humor. Like, let's
Right.
not get anyone fired. But there's plenty of clean comedy out there that you can share that when I receive something from you and it makes me laugh, I've now associated that humor to you. So
Mm-hmm.
you can curate humor and be the funny person. And and that just helps people lighten the mood. So when things are light, you can hold more of them.
Mm-hmm.
When things are heavy and stressful, it's a burden. You can only carry so much. And so I think one of the best leadership tools we have is to be that buffer between the stress that's coming our way in our leadership role and the people that have to actually do the work so that we
Mm-hmm.
can move things forward and accomplish a goal. So that leader has to be that buffer because if everybody on the team was feeling that same stress, well, they're too bogged down with something heavy to be in motion. So a leader needs to be aware of limiting the stress. And one of the best ways is, let me just lighten this up for the team. And just a quick laugh here and there. And it's not like doing a Netflix special every day in the office, but just one or two things throughout the day can just help keep people light. And when things are light, there's more space. When there's more space, you have more landing pad for all these new ideas and solutions. And when you have new ideas and new solutions to these problems and challenges, you have more confidence that the problem will actually be solved. And when you have more confidence that the problem will be solved, you are more likely to be in motion toward that solution. And when you're in motion, there's momentum. And when there's momentum, things
There's
happen.
progress. Yeah,
There's
things
progress.
happen. Yeah,
And it all
yeah.
comes from just a few laughs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, thinking about what you said, just kind of reflecting on some of the managers and leaders that I've really admired, and more than a few of them were also, self-deprecating in a way that would make the team laugh and give the team permission to not be perfect all the time. It goes back to that authenticity, but as you said, when you do that, you can release the pressure of the heavy days and be more productive and I actually gel a bit as a team to get through those tough times.
Yeah, I like that. I will say that one caveat with that is, stand-up comedians can get away with self-deprecating humor a little bit
Hmm.
easier than maybe someone in a leadership role. The
Hmm.
challenge is if you want me to follow you, you can't be so self-deprecating that I start
Yeah.
to question, why am I following this guy?
Right, right,
He doesn't
right.
even believe in him, right? Like That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. So there's just a, laugh
A
with
balance.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
laugh with me, but not necessarily like I don't want to poke so much fun. I had that as a keynoter, someone's spent, you know, solid good money to put me on their stage. The last thing they want me to do is so much self-deprecating humor that the audience is like, the hell did we bring her in for?
Right, 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 right.
So, you
Yeah, it's a
know,
time and place. It's a
yeah,
time and place
exactly.
for
Just
sure.
know your audience, right? It's like sales rule number one, and that lesson is applicable whether you're on a keynote stage or you're leading a team or you're in a one-on-one conversation with a client or a prospect or you're doing a stand-up set. Like know your audience. Adjust your messaging so that it's relatable to the audience.
Right, right. Yeah. So, in your work around emotional intelligence and, with all of the things that leaders have to know now, do you do you, and just thinking about some of the things we touched on already with what AI can't replicate, it's that building connection. But is there like one kind of sacred trait that you encourage leaders to start with as they're, you know, investing in their own personal development and wanting to continue to be competitive in this fast-paced world?
There's a few nuances based on the industry that you're in,
Hmm.
that I might say, okay, well, for you, because of your industry, social responsibility as a leader is going to be more important. But for you, it's, because of the stage of growth of your business in this moment in time, it's going to be more stress tolerance or decision making, right? So there are definitely some nuances based on many different factors. But I would say overall, if I had to pick one thing that the most effective leaders have as a strength across the board, it would be, and I can't just go to one, I'm going to go to a combination, but
Hmm.
there's a beautiful combination of self-regard and interpersonal skills, interpersonal
Hmm.
relationships. When those are in balance in a leader, they're not only showing up as strong, confident, capable, in control, but also with this beautiful awareness of team, people, relationship. And that's a very uh, it's a really good combination for a strong leader across the board. And I could build a
Hmm.
case for empathy, but then I'd have to bring in, independence. Like there's just a lot, but I love, self-regard and interpersonal relationship as a rich combination of probably the strongest leaders I've worked with across my 20 well, a 30-year career is people would be high in those and bring those in balance.
Yeah. And clicking down on self-regard, I mean, obvious to me would be confidence, maybe credibility, competence. Is there more to self-regard than that? How would you define it?
I defined it, it's just a little bit distinct from self-esteem. So
Hmm.
self-esteem would be, I need you to tell me I did a good job.
Hmm.
Self-regard, so it's outside in. Self-regard emanates inside out. So self-regard is, I got this.
Hmm.
I'm confident that I will in my own abilities, but I'm also grounded in that I can collect this is where that pairs with interpersonal relationships.
Hmm.
I'm I can still collect the ideas from others and then filter that through, okay, yes. I can I'm not so if it's out of balance to like imagine high self-regard and low interpersonal relationship skills, that's that overly controlling type of
Yeah.
leader, right?
I think
Like
I worked for that guy.
I did too. I did too. I also was in a relationship with that guy. It wasn't fun. Um, and women can be that too. Let's not,
Yeah, for sure, for
it's
sure.
it's not gender based. Um, but and that's where it's important to understand these attributes in relationship, in concert with each other. That's really where the stories are told, and where the growth is most visible. Because if I said, oh, okay, you're you're low in self-regard, let's work on self-regard, like, how would you know that you're working on it except that it shows up against the background of something else?
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's just important. So
Yeah.
self-regard, inside out.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Um, so I think as we wind down, in your work as a playwright, as a story, as a comedian, even as a keynote speaker, you're doing a lot of storytelling.
Mm.
I think that's also a skill that leaders can practice, can get better at to make their um, to get their teams to follow and understand the why of everything that they may be tasked with. I'm curious if you have a formula that you like to use in storytelling. Is there any tips that you might provide to leaders who might be listening?
Well, I mean, I think, the hero's journey is certainly like a really important story arc, and that, people love that, and it stands the test of time, and it's the basis of every movie you've ever liked, and all of that, every
Hmm.
story. I think the one overarching principle I would say around storytelling that has been always true for me, and I think I learned this more from sales, my sale, just being in the sales world for as long as forever, is to remember that it's not about you, right?
Hmm.
The more you can put somebody else in your story, they can see your story, experience your story, but through their eyes.
Hmm.
Um, that we keep in mind that, the story is meant to connect with somebody so that they are moved by the story to take an action, to feel a certain way, to whatever it is. And if the story is always about you and you're always the hero of your own story, it's just, it doesn't pack as much of a punch.
Yeah.
And I think, with my show, what was interesting is I wrote it for my 50th birthday, and it was called Book of Merit because it was my story.
Hmm.
And basically, I mean, I sold 170 tickets, but it was mostly friends, family, people flew
Sure.
in from 7 states. It was great. And I thought it was just going to be a one-time thing. At the end, people were saying, they saw themselves in the story. They would like to write their own story. I mean, like, it was just amazing what happened. And I realized that it wasn't my story that was important. It was that you leave the theater feeling a new relationship to the difficult things in your own life, and seeing that
Hmm.
you could rewrite your past and rewire your future with a dash of optimism and some humor. And
Hmm.
once I realized that, I realized, oh, I don't have the right title, because it's not about merit anymore.
Hmm.
Now, then that's when the I was searching and searching for this new title, and there it was in my journal all the time: optimistic personality disorder. And that just so defines my life, but it's so relatable. And people have told me, as soon as they saw the ad, or somebody told them about the show and they used the title, they were like, oh, I have that, like, so it's immediately
Hmm.
relatable. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I would say about storytelling, is just remember, it's who's listening to the story is
Yeah.
much more important than who is telling the story.
Yeah, those are great words of advice. And I love the title of your show because not only can people relate to it if they have it, but if they don't, they know someone who does.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah. Or if someone they wish they had it.
Yes, yes. Wow.
I met a friend of mine, a comedian, uh, Aaron Foster, and he does a one-man show, which he also wrote at 50 years old. So we have that in common. And his stories are about mental mental illness and his family and his relationship to his own depression. But he tells it in a very funny way, and audiences laugh. And so I joke like, okay, you're this 50-year-old man, like clinically depressed and making everybody laugh, and I'm this 50 some odd year old woman, like overly optimistic, and like somewhere in the middle is probably a really good human being. But
Right.
so we should probably do a double feature.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, so okay, in wrapping up, I'm just curious. We just touched on the comedy piece of it. What's one thing that surprised you about comedy, doing stand up, and what was the scariest piece of it?
Surprised me. I've definitely been surprised by the impact. I thought that people, I thought that the way to teach somebody something was in the content things that I was doing on keynote stages and workshops. Like that's where I can, you know, teach you something and you can take that into the world and be better and do better.
Mhm.
And comedy, well, that's just where I make you laugh.
Mhm.
And what surprised me was comedy had much more of an impact. And when the more I brought my comedy into my keynotes, the more impactful that they were. And it just surprises me. So that surprised me. And what was the other piece of that you asked me?
The scariest thing
The
about
scariest thing.
starting.
Ah, well, I will say I did my first original stand-up set in 2014, and I had already been on plenty of stages, thousands of people, with my sales and leadership programs, and it was the scariest thing I have ever done. Was the revealing something personal about myself in a 7-minute set,
Oh
because
yeah.
in a keynote you hope that they like you, but you're there to teach. And in a comedy club, the only reason you have a microphone is so people laugh every 7 to 10 seconds. There's a lot of pressure. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. And as soon as I did it, I knew my life was different. Like but now I'm touring the country, I'm producing my shows. It's incredibly risky what I'm doing. It's incredibly unusual to make a living touring as a playwright and performer. Thankfully, I can, I sprinkle in my keynotes and my workshops, so I have other
Yeah.
revenue streams. But it's it's a lot, and
It's bold. It's
it,
bold and
it's
it's
bold.
awesome. And
Thanks.
I am gonna check out your show list. New York is not far from me. That's a train ride from
Do it.
DC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got. I mean, I've done the show in probably it'll by the end of this year it'll be 20 different states. I have to recount.
Mhm.
Thousands of people have seen it, standing ovations. It's been beyond is what I've imagined. So now we're channeling in like the Netflix special and different
Yes,
things. And
yes.
who knows where this will go,
Yes. Let's
but it's
manifest Netflix for you right
yes,
now.
thank you. Or Amazon Prime. I'm not particular.
Or
It could
both.
be
Or both. I'm
you're
sure you can work
both.
them both.
I know
Yes.
I'm fine. That
Who
would be
needs to
fine.
choose?
Sure. Yeah,
Well,
maybe a
Merritt,
sitcom.
it has been such a pleasure. And you have so much to share. I hope and I know that people listening will follow up in terms of the keynote. Merrittcon.com, Kahan, Merritt with one R,
Kahn. One R, one
K-H-A-N.
T.
Yeah,
Hold on,
yeah.
let's start over.
Yeah.
Meritkahn, because it's
Yes,
all
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
there you
yes.
go.
Get that right. And it'll be
Um,
correct in our show notes too.
Perfect. And then for the show, if you want to catch the tour, you can go to opdshow.com, or you could type it all out, optimistic personality disorder. But opdshow.com will get you to a page called tickets, and you can see the tour. You can add your name to the list, and that'll alert you about, when tour dates are added. And there's always a let's talk on either one of those sites. There's a let's talk button. Just book 15, 30 minutes on my calendar. You got an idea, you got a question, You want to do emotional intelligence assessment? You want to bring me in for a keynote? You want to come see a show? You want me to perform a show for you for a fundraiser? Like, let's talk.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thanks for being so open and thanks for sharing so much of your talents. It was such a
Thank,
pleasure.
thank you, Christine. Appreciate it.
All right. Until next time, everyone. Thanks for listening.